If you're thinking about starting a podcast for your business in the year 2026 and beyond, well, today's episode is for you. I'm going to be going over whether or not it actually makes sense for you to even start one. What are the realistic numbers it comes to downloads and listenership, and how to actually make this work if you decide that starting podcast is the right decision for your business. Hi, everyone. My name is Nick Chamberlain, and if you don't know me, I run Every Word Media. I have been launching new podcasts every single year, and since 2014, I have published many episodes every week, and so over the years, it has added up to thousands of podcast episodes I have published, which has given me the privilege and unfair advantage of knowing exactly what the numbers are and stats look like when it comes to different podcasts and different genres and different avenues. But in today's episode, we're just going to be talking about business podcasts and how a podcast actually fits into your current marketing strategy. Alrighty, so let's dive into today's episode. So the big question is, should you even consider launching a podcast for your business? Well, the first thing we need to do is to evaluate your business. Think about your lead gen process, your lead nurture process, your sales process, and your fulfillment process. Let's answer these questions and determine whether or not a podcast might actually make sense for you in your business. So one, are you currently happy with your client acquisition system? Are you consistently bringing in leads into your business? Do you have a system where you're nurturing those leads and those leads are actually taking action on your offer, whether that is to book a discovery call, join a webinar, join a challenge? Are the leads actually taking action on what you're trying to sell them? Do you have a high number of sales calls each and every week that you're trying to get through and you're just overbooked? Or are your challenges and your webinars always completely booked out? Are they completely full? The last question is your fulfillment on your offer so packed that you're staying up all night just to finish client work? Let's evaluate these questions. If you said no to the lead gen process and you're not happy with it yet, then starting a podcast right now isn't going to make sense for you. You need to develop your lead system so you're consistently attracting leads. Because then once you have a bunch of leads, you're going to nurture them. And if you do not have a nurture sequence, then yes, a podcast is going to be for you, because a podcast is going to fit right there in the lead nurture sequence, because you're going to be delivering high value content and quality for those leads week after week after week, because a lot of those leads are not going to be ready to buy right away. So you're going to nurture them in your lead nurture process, and a podcast is going to fit right there for you. The third question was, do you have a high number of sales calls every week, every day? Are your challenges and webinars already being booked out? Do you need a podcast? No, you do not need a podcast, because you already have the lead gen system figured out and the lead nurture system figured out. And if you have a bunch of high quality sales calls and webinars and challenges that are always being booked, then you need to be the one who's creating the content on how to create this lead gen process and the lead nurture sequence. Because everyone in business, we're always trying to figure out how to get more leads and how to nurture these leads into actual sales calls. So you don't need one, but you would highly benefit from one, because it will help you to grow your brand and your name. And if you have the first two, your lead gen and lead nurture, completely figured out, then you're going to benefit from one, because your show is going to grow like wildfire, because you're actually making happen, right? All right, and the last question, is your fulfillment so packed you're staying up all night to finish your client work? Well, the podcast probably is not the best option for you right now. What you need to do is work on your team and your system and your processes. And once you have some free time, then go back and see, okay, do you need to improve your lead system, your nurture sequence, or your sales strategy? And if those are all dialed in and you're just working with your fulfillment, once you have the fulfillment dialed in, then you can go back and start your podcast to help everyone else with their lead gen, their lead nurture, and their sales sequence. And if you got the systems and processes dialed in for your business, your show is going to do excellent and do very well. All right, so just a quick recap. Should you start a podcast for your business? Do you have a client acquisition system that is actually bringing in leads each and every month? Then yes, start one. Do you have a lead nurture sequence that's already leading your leads to take action on your offer? If no, then yes, start one. If your sales calls and your webinars and your challenges are always booked, then adding a podcast to your marketing strategy is just going to grow your overall brand and your name. And if you're stuck in fulfillment mode, then build out your systems and your processes, work out your team and your strategy to make that less of a burden for you, and then work on those other things that I was talking about. If you have to go back to the lead gen strategy, work on that. If you need to go through the nurture strategy, then start a podcast. So the ideal picture looks like this. The best time to start a podcast for your business is this. You have a lead system that is bringing in leads consistently. You have a solid and proven sales system, and your fulfillment strategy and processes are dialed in. But maybe you're not consistently marketing yourself or nurturing those leads. So adding a podcast into your overall marketing strategy will help you greatly in nurturing those leads into taking action on your offer. So if you are thinking about starting a podcast, this is what it will actually look like when you launch one. Realistically, most podcasts take a really long time to grow, and it also depends on your niche and your industry and the audience that you are trying to attract and to grow. What I've seen for those who have no following at all or very little following, even up to 5,000 to 10,000 followers across social media channels, is going to take you anywhere from 12 to 24 months of consistent publishing. Especially if you're just doing bi-weekly, it's going to take up to 24 months. If you're doing weekly, it can take up to 12 months to see some consistent numbers and some actual growth in your show. Let me pull up some stats here. There are currently about 4.5 million podcasts on the different podcast platforms. So when I say podcast platforms, I'm speaking of Apple Podcasts and Spotify and all the other ones. And roughly about 345,000 to 605,000 are considered active podcasts. So let's compare that to YouTube. So currently there are over 115 million YouTube channels with roughly 60 million active YouTube channels. So there is a tiny amount of podcasts compared to YouTube channels. So if you're thinking podcasts might be a little oversaturated because you see everyone starting one, well, it's not. There's actually a very small number of podcasts. And about 90% die off after 20 episodes. So if you can go in with a mindset of like, okay, I'm going to get at least 20 episodes of my podcast, you're going to be in the top 10% of all podcasts. But that's because not many exist after that point, right? So 90% fail before 20 episodes and only 10% succeed after 20 episodes. Now that we kind of have a little understanding of what the podcasting landscape looks like for 2025 going into 2026, what did the download numbers look like? So according to Buzzsprout, they have about 120,000 active podcasts, and they say to be in the top 50% of all active podcasts, especially the ones that are on Buzzsprout. But I've seen this to be true in all the podcasts I have worked on over the years, right? If you have more than 28 downloads within 7 days, you can say you have a top 50% podcast. If you have over 111, they're saying 111 here, 111 downloads per episode within 7 days, you have a top 25% podcast. So you'll see that a lot. Like I have a top 25% podcast, and that's because they're getting at least 111 downloads per episode. And if you're in the top 10%, you're going to have over 450 downloads. And to be a top 5%, it's over 1,000 downloads. And if you're in the top 1% of all podcasts, you're going to be having a minimum of 4,300 downloads per episode within 7 days. And everyone that I have worked with in the last few years, I mean, these numbers ring true. So normally you start off with the 20 to 30 downloads per episode, especially when you have no following at all or a very small following, right? And then after about 6 to 12 months, we're getting into the 50 to 100 downloads. And then after 12 to 24 months, you'll see consistently 150 to 200. And then at some point, if your show's growing and you're doing the analytics, you're reviewing what your audience actually likes, you will get into consistent 300 to 500 downloads. And now, if you think about it, How powerful would that be for your business if you have 300 to 500 people actively listening to you? This is so much better than just the vanity metrics of an Instagram post. So you might be getting, oh wow, this is like 2 to 5,000 downloads, but what are the actual conversion rates with that? You'll tend to see that the conversion rates are a lot higher when it comes to podcasts because this is where people get to really know, like, and trust you, and they'll take you up on your offer once you present it to them. All right, but let's just say that you actually have a pretty large following. What are some good numbers to actually look for when you are doing your own show? Right. So, like we said, the top 1% of all podcasts, they're going to be at least 4,000 downloads per episode. If you're anywhere between the 5 to 10,000 downloads per episode, then your show is doing extremely well. And you're going to want to maximize on that by posting as often as you can. I was working on this one show. I don't want to name it, but we were getting about 5 to 6,000 downloads per episode, and we're doing once a week. And then we were considering, okay, maybe let's post 3 times. So instead of just posting on Wednesdays, let's post Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And we thought like the 5,000 would then kind of separate, and we'll have 1 to 2,000 on Monday, 1 to 2,000 on Wednesday, 1 to 2,000 on Friday, and then they would all total up to 5,000. But in our surprise, it turned out those people who are listening on Wednesday, those 5 to 6,000 people, then they started listening on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we tripled the amount of views. So don't think that putting out more content is going to annoy your audience. It is actually going to help you, especially if you already see that you're having a large following. And don't be scared about posting more and putting more content out there because they actually want to hear from you. So don't hinder that. Let people hear your amazing, wonderful voice. Okay, great. So how do we actually make this work? If you decided to go and start a podcast for your business, you're going to need to go all in for it, right? You cannot be going in, toes, dabbling. It just won't be successful. If you're going to go in, you need to go in with a game plan. You need to be going in like, okay, I'm going to be releasing once a week or every other week. Ideally, once a week at least when you first get started. And if you see that's doing really well, you can kind of pull back, but I would try to stick to the 1 week posting schedule, right? And then from there, it'll take about 3 to 6 months to see the download numbers and just kind of see what your audience likes to hear. And then, of course, in all your podcast descriptions and at the end of your podcast, beginning, middle, have some call to actions. And then those call to actions will point hopefully to a link. And then you will have a link tracker to see where those clicks are actually coming from. So set realistic goals and metrics and use tools like Bitly and Short.io to track your click-throughs and your calls booked and your CRM system, whatever you may be using. It's very important to create metric system that you're going to follow. So now that you kind of have that understanding, how does it actually look like? What is the time that invested into creating these shows, right? For me, it's taking about 30 minutes to an hour to outline the show. But what I would like to do ideally is one day of the month, brainstorm all 4 episodes, and another day of the month, outline all 4 episodes, and then another day of the month, record all 4 episodes. So my episodes right now are anywhere between 15 to 20 minutes, and if you're having a 20-minute solo discussion, then you can probably knock out 4 within a morning time frame, and then that is going to be a month worth of content. The other route you can go is doing the interview style. If you are not very good at solo speaking and you need someone there to help you with your conversation flow, then having someone on the show will help with that aspect, but it's not going to be really pushing your brand or your name. And it might take some extra time in the post-production process of editing everything together and just the coordinating of schedules and times and just the technology headache of figuring out, okay, well, we need to record each person's local video and local audio to make it sound great because Zoom conversations are out. Let's not do that. But if you have to, fine. But again, the quality of your podcast will suffer a little bit if you're just doing low quality Zoom calls, right? So don't treat this as a side project. Treat it as a lead nurture machine that is actually going to be a business asset for you. Then you can kind of think about all the different ways you're marketing your business. What are your lead gen strategies? What's your lead nurture strategy? What's your sales strategy? What's your fulfillment strategy? I love just having one strategy for each aspect. And if we can try to consolidate as much as possible, that would be great. So a podcast works great because you're nurturing those leads, and when people share it, you are actually doing some lead gen at the same time. Year after year, you are solving people's problem. It is also turning into a lead gen machine. And while you're talking about your content and how you're helping people, you are helping the sales process. So by the time people book a call, they're all ready to take action because you have been selling them through your words and everything you've been teaching them on your content, right? The only thing it doesn't really help with is the fulfillment. Starting a podcast does not help you do your actual client work unless part of your offer is to help market your client. Well, then bring them onto your podcast and then you're helping market their services. Okay, well, I guess it could help a little bit in each aspect. So that is all I'm going to go over in today's episode. I know it was a lot to consider. So tell me, are you thinking about starting a podcast for your business? And if so, why? And if you have already started a podcast for your business, please feel free to share a link to your show in the YouTube comments below. And if you're thinking, hey, Nick, I actually want to start a podcast, but I'm not sure where to go or what strategy to choose, then go to insidetheoffer.com/content to watch a little short video on how I can actually help you with that. And of course, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please leave a 5-star review so we can help other people out who are looking to create content for their business. So thank you guys so much for listening and to watching, and I hope you all have a blessed week. Take care and God bless.